Welcome in to the Rock Talk studio. Are you looking for the next great rock and roll book or worthwhile documentary to check out? Well, here comes the inside scoop and all the details on the top recommendations and hidden gems you don't want to miss. Like today's documentary about a very, very important set list from one of the largest tours of 2024 from a band that's been together for over 40 years. I'm your host, Big Rick. Join me for an exclusive look into what's hitting the shelves and the screens, and get ready to rock your reading and viewing list. And today, the spotlight falls on the documentary Road Diary, Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band, and Bruce bullseyes you right in the heart in the opening segments of this doc. He's reminiscing in a narration about how it all began for him in the band and how some are no longer with him. His voice is older and wiser. His drawl is a bit slower, but it's filled with so much heart. And you put a little soft piano in the background with a slight buildup about he was determined to throw the biggest party ever if he got to return to the stage because of the COVID shutdown, and he's got you. You can't help but feel a rush of emotion as the camera follows him as he climbs up the stairs, guitar slung over his shoulder, and he walks out onto that stage. It's the first tour with the E Street Band in 6 years, and this doc is Springsteen's diary of what this tour means to him, playing with his longtime band, dealing with his wife's health issues, honoring the bandmates no longer with him, and most of all, looking mortality straight in the eye. The film's guiding structure is the set list for the show. It's an important story that Springsteen feels inclined to tell with this set list and the placement of the songs at this point in his career. He's on a mission. COVID knocked out touring for years, and Bruce is itching to pay back his devoted audience with a live show that encompasses close to 50 years of playing. The director, Tom Zimney, creates an intimate look at the band as they make sure to not only honor their history, but also to come to terms with how many more times are they really going to be able to do this. Zimney has worked with Bruce for over 20 years, and it really translates in the intimacy, the shots, and the moments that he captures. His access to Bruce is very natural, and it doesn't seem forced at all. Zimney also did the Elvis doc, The Searcher. He did the Johnny Cash documentary called The Gift of Johnny Cash. He also did Springsteen's 2020 documentary, Letter to You. So he knows how to work with the boss. And he credits Springsteen and his manager, John Landau. And I just need to pause for a moment and mention Landau because he's been with Bruce for a long time. He knows him really, really well, really deeply. And he has a few really strong moments in this documentary, speaking to the power and the resilience of Bruce's live show. Getting back to Zimney, the producer, he credits Bruce and Landau for changing his life and encouraging him to go from editor to director. He uses a casual, kind of behind-the-scenes vibe to tell some of the story, kind of like you're just hanging out as the band is rehearsing and sharing stories about some of the early days on the road. And the stories are really entertaining about how the band was just coming up. This band has been together for close to 50 years. There is a rhythm to the way they interact without Springsteen around. There's a cool moment where Stevie Van Zandt is not comfortable with the rehearsals. He's getting kind of upset, and he goes to Springsteen and he asks him, is it okay if the band keeps practicing while you go home? It just fortifies the commitment that this band has to putting together a live show that can weather the stamina and energy of Springsteen. Even at 75 years old, and for doing it for so long, Bruce is still very, very committed to his live performance. He speaks about how he would go see Sam and Dave or James Brown and use those early R&B live shows as inspiration to how he wanted to perform. Reminiscing about all these songs has Springsteen looking back on his first band, the Castiles, and also the deaths of band members Clarence Clemens and keyboardist Danny Federici. There is a few great archival interviews with Danny and Clarence that really add to the story of what it was like in the early years and how the live show evolved over the years. The doc does a great job at navigating the past with not only Bruce's reflections, but also a handful of killer live moments. The doc's trajectory slowly builds as they work their way back to tour shape. You get a really good glimpse of what it takes for them to get up to speed. But the opening night jitters quickly turns into a celebration of being back on stage and feeling the appreciation of the audience that obviously missed seeing Bruce and the E Street Band. This combination of live moments interspersed with Springsteen's narration, this is not just a conventional concert film. The focus on this set list lets Springsteen kind of open up about his and his band's mortality. He's in the twilight years, and he makes no mistake about it. But Springsteen is re-energized here. In true Springsteen fashion, he is a beast when it comes to stamina and how much he is able to deliver as a live performer. You believe him when he says he's going to continue to keep going until the wheels fall off. The tour builds as the United States dates are wrapping up. Bruce even tells one of his new backup singers, just wait till Barcelona. And when that moment hits, you get what he's talking about. I got chills a few times during this doc. His overseas audience is something completely unmatched. They do a pretty cool thing with a doc where they share a bunch of clips from foreign fans who have been following Bruce, who have seen him a bunch of times. They talk about their devotion and what it means to see Springsteen throughout the years. The enthusiasm they display and the live shots just blow the energy through the roof. But this is where it gets, to me, a little corny. Even though I loved like the build-up and the energy there, producer Zimney kind of leans a little too much on crying close-ups of audience members. I think the large crowd shots and the interview of the fans were enough to portray the emotion of what was going on there. You don't need to exaggerate how powerful these songs and these moments are. It's very, very evident. And it's hard to argue with endless scenes of peerless showmanship and dazzling performances that leave the crowd in a frenzy. Bruce has got him where he wants him. This crowd is just over the moon that Bruce is there performing, and you get that in these shots. And Bruce himself even speaks to it. It's why he positions certain songs in certain places on the set list. And here's where the set list comes in again. Bruce even speaks to what he's up to. He talks about why he positions certain songs in certain places on the set list. He's orchestrating emotion. And if anybody can do that in a rock and roll setting, it's definitely Springsteen. And this doc has a bunch of deep emotional moments. He got me a couple times. I admit it, I was kind of tearing up. I know, Bruce, he just has a way of doing it. Springsteen talks about playing live and claims it's how he justifies his existence on Earth. He mentions that a lot of it comes together once he counts in the band. Road Diary is an hour and 39 minutes of proof of Springsteen's love of this band, love of the live show, love of friendship, community, and a sense of his higher calling. Road Diary, Bruce Springsteen, and the E Street Band. Now it's time for that one big question. What was I left with that needed to be answered after watching this doc? Was there anything lingering that I felt needed to be addressed? Well, there was one thing, and it was a great shot towards the end of Bruce looking out over the crowd, and Springsteen says that he is left with one thought, a quote from Jim Morrison. "O great creator of being, grant us one more hour to perform our art and protect our lives." So what was that about? It's fitting, no doubt. I really liked it. But there has to be more to that story, right? Well, that answer, and it's really cool, it has to do with Bruce, his wife, and the Doors, is coming up next. Okay, I'm dying to jump into that Morrison story, but before I do, I want to tell you about a book that I'm giving away because I think this is really cool and that someone's going to really enjoy this. I've got an extra copy of a new Rush book called Rush at 50. It takes a look at 50 moments in Rush's career. It's kind of like a coffee table style book filled with a bunch of great pictures. It's really cool. I'm about halfway through reading it, and I want to give it away to someone. And all you've got to do to enter to win the book is send me an email, and that's info@rocktalkstudio.com. Just send me over an email, say, hey, Big Rick, I want to win the book, and I'll enter you into the contest. Now, I do want to mention that this book is only available for U.S. citizens because of shipping, only available for people in the United States. And with that said, I wanted to take a moment to shout out and call out to my listeners that are not in the United States, because I see you here listening to the show. Some of you almost from the beginning, from the first time I've ever did a show about 2 years, you're still with me. And I wanted to send a shout out to you because I wanted you to know that I recognize you. And before I do this, I want to tell you that some of the pronunciations of where you live might be a little off because I don't know how to actually say them. I practiced a little bit. So I'm hoping to get them right in respect to you and where you live. But no, this is coming from my heart because this is about a thank you and how much I really appreciate you listening. So let me jump in here and thank Melbourne, Victoria, Frankfurt, Hesse, Leicester, England, Dubai, Toronto, Ontario, Dublin, Leinster, Ireland, Sydney, New South Wales, Victoria, British Columbia, Stockholm, Stockholm County, Brisbane, Queensland, Kamsa, Tyrol, Austria, and Winnipeg, Manitoba. I see you. I know you're listening. I thank you. I appreciate you so much. You rock. All right, let's take a look at this week's one big question from Road Diary, Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band, and that is talking about that Jim Morrison quote at the end of the show, which was really cool. I did a little bit digging and came up with an interview that Bruce did about that quote, and he talks about how him and Patty, his wife, they weren't together at the time, but they were in the same room, Asbury Park, in 1968. So Bruce says, quote, we got in bed and we said, okay, we're going to recreate the entire show. I found a bunch of Doors live cuts and we recreated the whole show from 1968 and listened to it before we went to sleep. The listening session sent Springsteen down a bit of a rabbit hole. I went on a bit of a Doors binge and I started to read several books, Bruce continued. And I came across that quote, and it just seemed like the perfect way to sum up what the band is about, what our relationship is with our fans, how much it means to me, what we've been trying to do, and what our mission statement has been for the past 50 years. It just seemed to sum up everything in those 4 very, very brief lines. O great creator of being, grant us one more hour to perform our art and perfect our lives. Coming up in next week's podcast, this is it. This is the big one. It's finally out, and I finally read it. It's a book. When announced, it really shocked me. I never thought the author would write a book. I don't think I need to leave you a clue with this one. I think most of you know who I'm talking about, but I always leave you a clue. So here's 2 letters for you. VH. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Love talking rock and roll and being able to give you a scoop on a title I think is worth your time and money. If you like the way Road Diary sounds and you're a Springsteen fan, you have got to check out the Stevie Van Zandt documentary, Disciple. It's in my archives. Go back and take a look into the archives. There's a lot of new books in the archives too. I just reviewed a book on Tom Petty, Robin Hitchcock, Journey, Joni Mitchell, and Prince, to name a few. All right, folks, tear it down, pack it up, and head on down the road. We'll see you next time in the Rock Talk studio.